That Selsey High Street is in urgent need of regeneration is agreed by retailers and shoppers alike. Some want to wait and see the impact made by Asda if the Park Farm development goes ahead before making plans. Others suggest that the retailers need to start the regeneration right away. In this podcast, Tate, Selsey Town Council Coordinator, discusses with Hugh Graham some of the ways that might be helpful to retailers. Hugh Graham for Selsey Internet Radio. And I'm in the Town Council offices and I'm talking to Sam Tate, who is the Town Coordinator. What on earth is the Town Coordinator, Sam?
It's a very good question, Hugh. It's a somewhat broad job title that basically means that anything can fall under my remit if someone wants something done about it.
Okay. Well, now I know that as a council employee, you can't give me opinion on the Park Farm development.
Absolutely.
But you can't argue with the fact that the Selsey High Street is struggling.
It's not. I think regardless of Park Farm and Asda, you can almost sort of push that aside as something entirely separate. That the High Street as it is here and now is struggling. We know that footfall is declining, that less and less people are coming down the High Street, there's less people going into the shops, and we know that the shops are really struggling, and it's a hard time for a small business to be struggling. Banks aren't lending to small businesses, so it's very hard to access finance to try and change what you're doing or to invest in new stock, upgrades, things like that. It's a tough old time out there, and you know, a lot of businesses are struggling, and you know, it is very hard, and unfortunately there is no simple magic bullet that we can fire to make it instantly better. Alright then,
so if we accept all that, I have just driven up and down the high street and around to East Beach and wouldn't be precise about this figure, but it seemed to me that counting pumps and solicitors' offices and estate agents, there appears to be about 115 businesses on the high street and down at East Beach.
That probably sounds about right, Hugh. I think that seems a reasonable guess of what there is, and as you say, there's a mix there of retail services and catering type based businesses. I think the pinch really is clearly for the retailers and the restaurants and cafes. I think this time of year the restaurants and cafes hopefully are doing better and are keeping busy, but I know that the retailers are really, really hurting.
Okay, now then, it's a difficult question this. If I went through the high street yesterday afternoon and from West Street to School Lane, I counted 11 people actually walking the high street. Well, no one's going to make a living out of 11 people, so I can understand why they're struggling. If that is the problem, that there's not enough people in the high street, how is it that Chichester pedestrian precincts are full of people and with the hustle and bustle of commerce? What has Chichester done, except in the fact that it's ringed by 3 major supermarkets, to keep the town centre alive?
I think you've got a mix of factors. Chichester's always busy because it's a large employment centre. You've got the county council and the district council that have got offices in Chichester, so there's always a critical mass of footfall within the town on any given day, whereas in Selsey, our larger employers, people like Checkatrade and Ocean Air, are out of town. They're not in the centre of town. So there isn't the drive for footfall in the high street.
But at 10 o'clock in the morning, Sam, these people are at work. The people I saw were walking up and down the precinct looking in shop windows.
I think there's environmental factors. Chichester is a pedestrianised precinct. It's a much easier space to walk around, to dwell and spend time.
We could do that in Selsey, couldn't we?
There are people who would love to see the high street pedestrianised.
Yeah.
There are people who would hate to see it pedestrianised because it would make access difficult for deliveries. There's also a lot of residential property on Selsey High Street, which would make it a lot harder to out and out pedestrianise it. But that's not to say that I don't think that there's an awful lot that could be done to improve the experience for pedestrians in the high street, to make the pavements wider and more accommodating, to put more places in for people to just sit, dwell, take time, chat with their friends, make it more sociable, to draw people into the high street as a more sociable experience. At the moment, Selsey High Street is very much focused around the car. It's a high street in which the car is very much the dominant sort of force around which it is designed. The pavements are quite narrow and the traffic runs up and down, and don't even let's start on the parking issues. So I think there is definitely work that needs to be done looking at how the public realm of the high street can be improved to make it a more pleasant environment for people to navigate on foot. The point being that if people arrive somewhere on foot and they spend time somewhere on foot, they spend more money. There's an awful lot of studies that can show you the impact of moving people from travelling somewhere by their cars to getting them to walking somewhere, and they spend probably twice as much money.
Yeah.
So part of it needs to be about making it a more pedestrian friendly environment. There's things that require a large amount of investment and a large amount of money to be spent, which possibly is unlikely in the current climate because there's not really much government money around for spending on anything. So waiting for the county council to sort of spend a huge amount of money on high street improvements in Selsey will probably be waiting a very long time. There's things that could be done more quickly that the retailers maybe could do as well, which is just thinking about what they've got outside their shops, how much pavement space they're leaving for people, how easy they're making it for people to navigate in mobility scooters, push chairs, things like that. I don't want to get involved in the able furore, that's kind of up to retailers, but maybe think about where able are positioned and how it's making the environment for pedestrians and whether it's encouraging them or not. So I think there's things like that, maybe look at whether they could improve things, window boxes, hanging baskets,
so making the town look pretty.
Yeah, making it look a lot prettier, and I think that's something that the shopkeepers are quite capable of doing themselves and doesn't require much money.
When I talked to my wife about this, who is a lady who is of principal age, and I said, what is it that takes you out of Selsey into Chichester? And she said, if I want to buy you a shirt or a tie, I have to go to Chichester. If I want to buy my own underwear, I have to go to Chichester. If I want to buy our grandchildren's shoes, I have to go to Chichester. There are so many things that I have to go to Chichester for because they just aren't available in Selsey.
Absolutely, and I think that's another thing here is that there is clearly a job of work to be done, and that's something that the town council can help with, is helping the shopkeepers understand who lives in Selsey now, what the population looks like, where they spend their time in the day, whether they work inside or outside of the village, how wealthy they are. There's a whole wealth of demographic data that we can access, that we can make available, and we're happy to share with the shopkeepers and happy to engage with them, just to help them really understand maybe where the market is in Selsey. It's still an older population in Selsey, but it's actually quite an affluent older population on the whole. Our retired people, although we have a large group of older retired people, a lot of retired people in Selsey now are what I would call young retireds. They're in their early 60s, and somebody in their early 60s who's retired now is very different from a retired person even only 10 years ago. It's highly unlikely that a person who's recently retired now doesn't have a smartphone, an iPad, and is not computer savvy. So there's things like that we're not necessarily adapting to how our population is changing and looking at actually serving what their needs and requirements are in the best possible way.
I reckon that Marjorie and I buy probably 30% of our purchases on the internet.
Absolutely.
And I think that we're a long way from being unique. And I've talked to my mother, who's before she died about 18 months ago. She at 94 was buying on the internet.
Absolutely, and I think we shouldn't be naive about the threat that the internet places on businesses, because when you can order something from Amazon Prime and have it the next day or whatever, it doesn't matter that you can't necessarily buy it in the village. But where retailers in the village, or where retailers face-to-face do win, is that they win in service and experience and the sociability. And so as online becomes more prevalent for sort of like bulk purchases, things that you don't want to carry, stuff like that, it's easier to order it online and have it delivered to your door. But equally, the social experience of going out, meeting a friend in town, having a cup of coffee and a chat, having a chat with your butcher about what's in, what's good, talking to your local grocer about what's in season, things like that. That's where the local shops can beat the internet and beat the supermarkets hands down every time.
But there's definitely no reason, Sam, why the local shops shouldn't have an internet website.
There isn't, and there's no reason why they couldn't, but it requires coordination and working together, and that's perhaps where it becomes harder, because it needs collective action. They need to agree to work together on it, because it would be much stronger. There's websites, things like Hubbub, which is a really good example of a one-stop website which is made up of all the local independent shops in an area. It mostly operates in London at the moment, in little areas of London, but there's the local butcher, the local greengrocer, the local cheese merchant on it. But it's one website where you do your weekly shop in one place.
So Selsey could have its own website.
There's no reason why the traders couldn't do something like that if they were willing to work together to do it and achieve that, which is always the challenge.
I talked to Steve Mitchell this morning, and he got a government grant to improve his website.
Yep.
And he got a contribution of more than half, which I think it was exactly half.
Yeah,
of the website. And these grants are available, aren't they?
They do. They come up periodically, and again, we would encourage people come into Selsey Works, particularly on a Thursday when George Smith, who's the Economic Development Officer at the District Council, is here. Because George quite often has access to grants and funding that he can put businesses onto. So come in, talk to George, talk to one of the team here, and we can always try and see if we can find funding to help with projects like that. There's quite often little pockets of money out there available. But,
there's a new scheme at the moment, isn't it, called Government Business Growth? Or growth vouchers?
Yes, there's all sorts of things that come and
go. And
they're
£2,000 a time?
Yep, there is. West Sussex have a scheme called Be the Business as well, which regularly offers grants for various things.
And yes, you talk to the average businessman in the high street here, and they have no knowledge that these things exist.
They don't, and it's not that it's hard to access funding, but the businesses need to have very clear visions on where they're going in order to be able to grant applications and actually secure funding, because there's not money out there where you can just phone up and say, give me money to cover the rent for the next
it has to be reasonable.
6 months. So and
it has to be well thought out and planned, doesn't it?
Absolutely. So it kind of comes back to the fact that really the groundwork for me is getting that market research right for the businesses, understanding what their market is and where they need to take the business in order to be sustainable and hit what their market needs. And then at that point, you've got a much greater chance of writing a convincing business plan and securing some grants and some help. But come in and talk to George on a Thursday at Selsey Works, come in and talk to any of the team at Selsey Works on any other day. If you've got ideas, if you've got concerns, and people would be happy to help and sit down and talk through it with you. Okay.
So, Sam, the first step then to regenerating the high street is to get some basic information sorted out.
It is. My background is marketing, and my background particularly is data marketing, so I hate to harp on about it, but it really does work. The main thing, first of all, is to just understand what your customers look like and what they want to buy.
Okay, I'm sure we'll be talking about this again. Thanks a lot.
Thanks, Hugh.
There are many ways that retailers can help themselves, and plenty of money is available. Steve Mitchell of Summit Bikes in Hillfield Road, Selsey, thought that a new professionally designed website would help his business. He applied and received a grant of £800 from Chichester District Council, and now has a website that has definitely improved his inquiries. I'm in Summit Bikes talking to Steve Mitchell, who's just come back from France, having ridden miles and miles and miles and raised £4,000 for local charities. But the reason I'm here today is Steve had a grant about a year ago, and I'd like to talk to you about it because it's an illustration of the fact that there is a lot of help available for retailers in the high street if they know where to look. Tell me about your grant, Steve.
Well, our grant was put towards promotion. Case in point was our website, because it sort of lacked a bit of punch.
Yeah.
So we needed it updated, and it was something that we couldn't really afford to do.
Right.
So the grant helped us.
So how much was the grant for?
£800.
And it came from? Chichester District Council?
That's the one.
Okay. And how did you find out about it?
Somebody sent me an email regarding it, alerting me to it. So,
because one of the things, there's all sorts of money and funding available.
it's knowing where to look. That's the key, and knowing it's out there in the first place.
So, do you think it would be a good idea for the organisation representing high street retailers to actually have someone looking full time for these grants?
I think that'd be a great idea. I think it would help the high street. Yeah.
Tell me, so you spent the money on your website.
Yeah.
What has a better? Is it a better website in your view?
Yes, it's much better. Yeah.
Much better. So, and what's it doing for you?
It's enabling people to see what we do. You can navigate through the website a lot better.
Yeah. And the people who are responding, are they local? From Sussex, all over the country, or what?
It's surprising. I always thought a website was to attract people from further afield, but I'm getting people who live 2 streets away from the shop coming in and saying, I saw that on your website.
Isn't that amazing?
Surprised me.
It generates local business.
Yeah, it does.
Do you think it's increased your turnover?
Hard to say, because it hasn't been happening very long.
So how long has the website been live?
The new website is probably just a matter of months.
Yeah, okay. And has the number of hits or responses you got increased?
Yes.
What, by a significant level?
It's definitely helped.
Yeah. What would you advise anybody do you think it's possible to be a successful reseller without a website now?
I think it's even harder than it used to be, because everybody's on their smartphones, their tablets, their PCs, looking at the web.
Yeah. One of the things I was talking to Sam Tate about is the fact that the high street does need regenerating, and she said that there are some people in the high street who are not on computers, don't have an email, don't even have an email address. What would you advise them?
Well, I'm flabbergasted by hearing that, because I think if you're not contactable through email, through your website, people can't see what you do through your website, then you're really limiting your market and therefore limiting your chance of success in the high street.
One of the things that interested me, I looked at some research and I found that nearly everybody under the age of 35 does their shopping on the internet.
Right.
People over 60 are doing all their shopping on the internet. Because they don't have to go out, they can have their things delivered to door, and they are fully engaged in the savings which buying on the internet provides. So do you think it's possible to run a successful business without a website now?
I don't think it's possible to run a successful business without a website now.
Okay. I'm going to come back and talk to you in about 6 months' time and find out more about your website.
Sounds
Thanks
good.
a lot, Steve.
You're welcome.